We are often conditioned to prioritize connection over self-return. And this is part of the woman journey, constantly returning to ourselves, because if we don't, we become depleted. Welcome to the Trust Yourself Anyway podcast. My name is Olivia Lee, and today is episode 2. And we are about to get really vulnerable. I'm going to be sharing some stuff I am currently living through that every woman and really every person has navigated at some point in their life. And that is around interpersonal relationships. When you are navigating a breakup, when you are navigating separation or no contact or giving each other space. And I am going to be diving into this because this correlates directly to self-trust and is an opportunity to befriend change and understand more of yourself and come back to yourself. It is very vulnerable because it is something I'm currently going through, but as I have reflected on the last 8+ years of trauma healing, and that will be for another episode, how trauma is a catalyst to your most powerful self, I will be sharing more of how do you navigate through these difficult times when everything in your body is telling you reach out to that person instead of let's stay grounded in our bodies and really listen to what our inner feelings are, our inner thoughts are, and how do we pour back into ourselves. As I shared in the last episode, women, girls, from a very young age, we are taught to give, and we tune out of our own intuition. This is part of the journey of coming back to ourselves because our intuition is our sixth sense. We have an inner knowing that cannot be explained by logic. So it's about diving back into that, and you know what is good for you. And oftentimes we have been conditioned in society, the patriarchy, to put someone before us. And admittedly, I was recently dating a friend, and while it was very short, it was 2 months, it was very deep, it was very intimate, it was very passionate. But I noticed that I stopped producing content altogether on social media. I put everything to the side and I dove deep in. That in itself is self-abandoning. It's realizing and an opportunity, a positive opportunity from this difficult separation to come back to myself and look back and reflect on who I've become in the 8+ years of trauma healing through really traumatic relationships. This was a rather healthy breakup, but an opportunity to realize where are the parts that I've kind of fallen back into in past identities. And it's really important to really pinpoint the inner parts, the younger parts that may be responding out of fear, out of defenses, really reparenting those parts, not enabling them to act in that, and to recognize we have all the tools now at this present moment, and to not let those past versions that didn't have those tools yet lead. And this is the part of self-leadership, of being the parent to all the younger parts of you and bringing them along on this journey and sharing with them that you are okay. That is part of nervous system regulation. That's part of parts work. And we can dive into that in a little bit to help you navigate that. When it comes to self-trust, no contact, breakups, things that are out of our control, it is really important to, first off, be amongst friends and distract yourself as much when it is absolutely fresh. Continuously do activities. Lean into the hobbies and activities that bring you joy. Be creative. Use that as a source of light and joy. And then there comes a point where you will start reflecting. You will also have this pull to want to talk to said person, it is so important to ground in your body and recognize, is this coming from a place of love or is this coming from a place of fear? Is this serving me, or is this an impulse in this very moment that will serve me short term? Currently, the break that I have with this person, this friend, this, I guess, ex, is actually a blessing in disguise to come back to myself and to listen to my inner voice and to find that balance again, because oftentimes us women will get lost and put others first and revolve our lives around someone. That is gross. That is gross. But it's also okay, because it's conditioning when it happens and we catch ourselves and we come back to ourselves. That is part of the woman journey, and constantly a cycle, and constantly something that we have to recognize and consciously come back to our inner beings and prioritize ourselves. We live in a patriarchy that has taught us to not prioritize ourselves. So we self-abandon and we put relationships and other people first. So this has been a blessing in disguise, and to constantly remind myself as well that when we come home to ourselves, we allow others to grow and develop themselves. What I've been navigating is, I would say, my old anxious attachment identity has come out, while I have the more secure identity of myself who is ready to move forward and knows that we will be okay. And it's to make sure that that secure part is leading. And the anxious attachment identity has come out because we have come across an energy in the other person of avoidant attachments. And not to villainize those who have avoidant attachments, but when it comes to anxious and avoidant, if unaware of such a dynamic, it can turn rather toxic. And so let's dive a little bit into what anxious and avoidant attachment are, and secure attachments. Anxious attachments is when we tend to be the chasers and we fear abandonment. Avoidant attachment also fears abandonment, but they want to keep an arm's length, emotional distance, because they also fear that if they're too close, they'll lose themselves and that they'll get hurt. While anxious attachment is then when, with an avoidant, constantly being told and affirmed in their narrative that they are not lovable or not enough or not worthy. This perpetuation between the two, with the avoidant then realizing, yes, it's not safe because anxious attachment, this individual is not giving me breathing space, that can turn into a toxic cycle. If you've experienced one of those attachment styles before, or it just sounds familiar, you've had probably at least one relationship like that, especially if you've had some sort of trauma in your life, or you have had a turbulent family upbringing, childhood. It is said that 50% of the population, though, is secure, and that is the goal, because we are not stuck in an attachment style. We experience attachment style. It's a defense mechanism to protect us, but when we're conscious of it, and then we meet another person who has it, we can have compassion that this is just something that is there to protect them. What I've been navigating, because I've had many experiences with avoidant attachments, and I have had an anxious attachment, given I've had a very traumatic relationship 8 years ago, and I've spent the 8+ years thus far working on it. And so right now, I am on the edge of secure. But when you meet someone who, the guy I was seeing, he was on the edge of secure as well, but avoidant, it can trigger both of those wounds and amplify them. And at the same time, given the conscious work, if it's two parties, both people can work on it. If unconscious, then the relationship cannot work. And it's also to recognize that we can't force or we can't control another person to do the inner work. We can only focus on what's in control, and that's our inner world, our actions, our beliefs, our decisions. So I have found myself slipping into that anxious attachment identity. Just a lot of the confusion, because what you feel and what I felt was very real in the connection, but at the same time, you can recognize that someone's not ready and they can feel the same way, but recognizing that having deep care for each other or love for each other is not enough. It takes conscious work of our subconscious patterns, bringing the subconscious fears and defense mechanisms that we've developed from our pain and trauma previously, and bringing it to the surface to look at with love and compassion and not shame, and to release them. Because when it comes to connections, it really does require vulnerability. That's something I've been journeying with, my own vulnerability of seeing another person and feeling certain things and being so intimate. It's one of the most intimate relationships I've been in, and yet also recognizing that another person may not be ready, or they might be overwhelmed. Their nervous system, doesn't find it familiar. And we tend to, if not conscious, be attracted to what is familiar, not necessarily what's good for us. I recall that he said that the relationship was very healing and his past relationships were very traumatic. And it's been very difficult reflecting on that and recognizing and really accepting that you can really care about someone, but they are not ready. That's something I'm moving through. And this opportunity at this time is to allow myself to come back to myself, figure out what lights me up, right? The joy of doing this podcast. I'm finally inspired to do this podcast. Feminism and inner work intertwined, my own experiences, creating content, hanging out with friends, going to the movies. I'm booking travel, going internationally. And so recognize that the no contact container is an opportunity to return to yourself. It is an opportunity for women to come back to that sacred part of ourselves that we often abandon for what we've been sold to be, either someone to rescue you or to avoid something in your life. A lot of the work that I do is around feminist psychology, and we are often conditioned to prioritize connection over self-return. And this is part of the woman journey of constantly returning to ourselves, because if we don't, we become depleted. And that's why when you see someone go through a breakup, we always say, oh, wow, that girl's she has a glow up. She's radiant. It's because she's pouring that energy back to herself. That is the essence of being a woman, that magnetic energy. And how to maintain and keep that sacred energy and not let that be zapped by situations, because life is constant change. There will be roller coasters, high highs, low lows. We have to recognize that coming back to ourselves is the most important thing. We come into this world by ourselves. We leave this world by ourselves. It is so important that we build such a strong relationship with ourselves and self-trust through uncertainty and change. If we knew everything that was going to happen in our life, life would be a bore. So lean into the adventure as well, is another thing I say to myself. So as you can see, I'm not recording this on the other side. I am still living in it. I am right there with you. And it's been an opportunity to reflect on what I've learned through the years and how I've built such a strong self, but also recognizing when your old identities will come up out of a defense mechanism, and that's absolutely okay. I think it's really important for us to have compassion when those old identities come out, gently parent ourselves to understand that we have so many more tools now to navigate and move forward. While I am diving into this, we'll talk more on feminine rage, how it is so powerful if channeled in the right way. And we're going to be talking more on change in the next episode. Something I want you to reflect on as you are listening to this, if you are currently moving through a breakup or a no contact or space, is the first one. Am I wanting to reach out to this person out of love or fear? And just recognize the difference. Ideally, do not act on it. Journal it out. Secondly, what are the lessons that you've learned from this connection? And where are you overriding your needs and your wants? Recognize where the misalignment is and focus on how can you get back into alignment with your needs and wants. I want you to sit with that this week. Recognize that we can't control other people. That has been the biggest one for me. We can't control the future. We have to embrace uncertainty and embrace change. Focus less on the future, the past, because both of those, as we focus on, take away from the present time that we have. And that is the most important. I want you to focus on the things that bring you joy, to surround yourself with loved ones, and to just remind yourself that you deserve to be prioritized. So do that for yourself. It is very hard for people to prioritize you if you do not prioritize yourself. And so embody that. Your life is worth prioritizing. When it comes to these breakups, it's very important also to recognize that this is a blessing in disguise. It may be so painful right now, but it's an opportunity to excavate wounds that have not healed yet. Show compassion, really face those fears, look at them, and move through that wound to heal it. I think another thing is recognizing that you could deeply care about someone and also recognize that they may not be ready or they just might not feel the same way. And I think sometimes that can be the most difficult. In the end, you will be okay, but also let yourself cry and feel it all. All of your feelings are valid. I have felt anger. I have felt grief. I have felt shame. I have felt all of the negative emotions, but it's so important to feel all of that. And they do say that women, we move through it a lot quicker than men because we're more attuned to our emotions. And men are less likely to move on as fast. Just focus on yourself as you're navigating this journey, trusting that you are safe. You're safe in your body. Do nervous system regulation exercises, and trusting that everything in the future will be okay and that you've gone through difficult things. You can still get through difficult things. The proof is in the pudding from the past. As I look 8+ years of navigating trauma, and now here I am navigating a healthy breakup, everything will be okay. I will be okay, you'll be okay, and we'll move through this, and we'll let ourselves feel sad, and we'll let ourselves feel angry. We'll do everything that we can to take care of ourselves and prioritize ourselves and our life because we deserve it. And that's where self-trust is. We show it through action. Each little habit, each little routine, each action that we pour into ourselves is showing us that we are worthy, that we can trust ourselves, and that we don't self-abandon, that we are worth prioritizing. If you have any questions that you want to submit to the podcast, there are going to be a few episodes where I am answering questions. The next episode, we'll be talking more about change. Later in the season, we'll also be talking about feminine rage and more on feminism and inner work and how they intersect so that you can find fulfillment in your life as well as step into that leader that you know you are meant to be. in various areas of your life. So have an amazing week. I will see you in the next episode.